you know, there's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, you know, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.
Good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to the Varside Spurs podcast. And today I'm joined by our regular, Ritch Grove. How are you, buddy?
All right, mate. How are you getting on, Lee?
Yeah, good. I just got back from Liverpool, and I did the usual. I went to see some family I'd never actually seen before, it's a long story, so I won't go into it now. But it was lovely. It's really felt welcome. I mean, the very warm people anyway, but this is sort of on my dad's side, and my nan's extended family. She's long since passed, but I got to meet up with them, and it was just lovely. They brought photos, they talked about old stories. It was wonderful. Yeah, so that was exciting. Then of course I did the usual sort of touristy things. I went to the Cavern and went round all that area and some interesting bars. But it was good. I enjoyed myself. And also today, actually, we are joined by a guest, Paul Kramer. Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. It's a business doing pleasure with you.
Well, we'll still see about that. Anyway, right. So what I thought actually we'll do before we get into the game is just to sort of say a few words about how you're feeling really about Spurs right now, and what's your mood in relation to the club and the way things seem to be going at the moment, Rich?
Well, I'm over the bloody moon at the minute. I've got to be honest. Like the last 12 months are almost unrecognisable, aren't they? Really, you wouldn't believe that it's the same club. I know. I heard. Somebody said to me during the game on, God, it seems like a long time ago already, Saturday lunchtime, it was only 4 people on the pitch that started the last league game last season, I think,
Yeah.
So it's been a bit of a turnaround, and yeah, I'm overjoyed. The things that are going on the pitch can only sort of, they can't sort of get away from the wider problems of the club. But let's not detract from the fact that it's fun again. That's
yeah. First time in about 3 or 4 years, I felt like I'm actually looking forward to a game. Yeah. So, how about you, Paul? What your thoughts and feelings are just sort of generally the mood and vibe around the club at the moment?
Well, it got to the point where we would only go along to the games just to hang out with our mates, rather than actually the football was a inconvenience because it was so dire and impossible, to like. Or in Italy, however way you look at it, it was just the worst. I've been going for. Hold on, let me mute that. I've been going for 50 years, and I've never known it as bad as the last 2 or 3 years have been. And I don't just blame Conte, I blame Mourinho as well. So I was never a fan of either. They totally didn't understand the Spurs way or the ethos of what we are. And they threw everyone under the bus. One parked the bus and one threw everyone else under it. So now it's like it was in that, that spell between when we qualified for the Champions League final and the actual final itself. We're all walking around in a daze and on cloud 9 because it's just so good. The only thing that I would temper that with is that the guy who was the manager before the 2 previous ones, whatever his name was, Nuno, thank you. Yeah. Senior moment. He won the Manager of the Month award for September back in the. When he first, that's the only thing I would, let's just hope we can keep this going.
Calm it a bit. But I kind of agree with you on that point. We shouldn't get too carried away. I mean, we're desperate to get carried away, right? The last 3 or 4 years has just been so abject and so miserable that we're just looking for any glimmer of hope. But it does feel different, and I think we are, not silly enough to kind of get sucked into something that I don't think is unrealistic. It just the mood and vibe, which is why I wanted to start with this point. Really, just feels markedly different. And there's almost, I mean, this is probably disingenuous, but there's almost a sense that we're prepared for the bumps and probably the odd loss in these early days, as long as we see some good football. I mean, in reality, if the results start going south, patience does wear out. But having said that, at the moment, it just feels like it's an exciting time to be a Spurs fan again. The right things are being said. The players look really enthused. There feels like there's a bit less pressure on us, maybe since Kane's gone. And there's a real connection, isn't there, between the manager and the media, and the manager and the fans, but also so much exactly the same with the players. They seem to be going out their way to make a connection to us. And I just, something about that feels like the start of an exciting new journey to me.
Yeah, we'd hit rock bottom, so we could only go up from where we were. It couldn't have got any worse, could it, really?
Mm-hmm.
And even the wins were a hard watch. So now I think we're ready for some losses along the way, and we should be able to take them in the same way as we take the wins,
Mm-hmm.
good and bad. But I think we're going to just be fine in the end. It's a great new era.
We're even proud to wear the merch again. Yes. Here we go. Maddison. Yeah.
Oh, look
so
at that.
for those,
he's got a new one.
Yeah, those listening in, Mr. Kramer here has got number 10, James Maddison, on his back of the new blue away shirt, I should say. By the way, I got that. It was my birthday the other day. My wife bought me that shirt as well. So
it's the best shirt of all.
Yeah, it's the best one for a long time, actually. I really like it. I'm going to be rocking that the next game.
Yeah, I'm going tomorrow night, so I'll obviously wear it tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
Although I don't think Maddison will play tomorrow. So
no, I think we'll get on to that, actually, but we'll look at what we feel about whether there be changes a bit later on. Any other thoughts on what we've just been talking about, Rich?
Yeah, I know this is something that I've sort of spoken about on our little group chat, Lee, on the WhatsApp. Already, Ange's tenure is reminding me, in tone and a little bit in football wise, and a little bit in personality wise on his part, of my favourite. I mean, I've been, I've been like a conscious Spurs supporter since the early 80s, since, when I could first really understand what it was I was watching, was that 1982 cup winning side, right? So I've seen a few come and go, not quite as many as Paul, but, I'm not that far behind. And my favourite time of all them years was Martin Jol Spurs. I bloody adored Martin Jol, and I adored the feeling of around the club while Martin Jol was the manager. And he gave us that bit of pride and that bit of self-belief, and I know I bang on about this. If anybody's ever unfortunate enough to get cornered by me in a pub, I'll wax lyrical about him. The first interview that he gave about Spurs making the hair on your neck stand up, and just the name of the club and all that stuff, that instilling that belief. And I'm really beginning to get a feeling of a similar sort of vibe from Ange. And I know we've sort of bounced a couple of funny things backwards and forwards on the chat about, actually, his demeanour's quite Yol-like, and he looks the same stood on the touchline with arms folded and all that. But without wishing to be hyperbolic, there's something about we never expected Martin Jol Spurs to win the Champions League. We never expected Martin Jol Spurs really to get into it, apart from that one year. But we had some good fun. And it feels like, setting aside what's gone in the last few years where we did reach those positions, it feels like we're back at that place again,
Mm-hmm.
Like Paul said, we've been at rock bottom for a couple of years, and I feel like this is, it's just reminding me, the whole vibe is reminding me of that time. Yeah. It's fun to watch. It's not, the guy whose name it cost us £1 a time to mention was ruthless, and his teams were extremely professional and cold, and they battered teams to death in a really organised manner. And we're not seeing that, but we are seeing a little bit more of that chaos, just like, let's just get the ball about and see what happens, sort of Yol football. And that's my real takeaway at the minute. 3 games in, but like Paul just said, Nuno had just won manager of the month this time in his tenure, and then he was gone a month later. So
yeah. But I mean, I'm going to try and sort of touch on why I think we should be excited soon. Actually, just building on that point, I got someone called Fixer 2017. His name is Chris. Messaged me on Twitter, X or whatever it's called now, and he was sent a little video clip of Martin Jol on the sideline shouting during the North London derby, "Play, play, play," which is exactly what Ange says. He just wants you to get the ball and keep playing. He's like absolutely barking that out. We just need to be on the front foot, and so those similarities go a lot further than just the vibes, I think, and the look. There's some, and of course, then with Martin Jol, we were at the beginning of a new journey. I mean, many of us have said, you and I have said it, but we're not the only ones, that it felt like the beginning of the new Spurs, the modern Spurs that we know today, that he was pretty much the architect of us, because first time we've been in Europe for ages as well under him. And this almost feels like a step up from that, but the similar vibe, because we've got the platform now. We are the huge club, no doubt about it. Like we said before in other pods, that the manager keeps mentioning it. We are a huge club. Madison said it the other day, actually, didn't he? We were talking about just the preseason game against Shakhtar. There was like 50,000 plus. He says when you walk in this place, you feel you've joined a huge club, and I like that. I think we need to keep that message going all the time, because we put ourselves down for a long time. And everybody else puts us down as well. And it's about time now, I suppose, we kind of felt proud again and started bigging ourselves up. And I couldn't give a shit whether some fans just think we're delusional. We're not. We are a huge club.
Yeah.
And even Robbie Williams was on proved that point yesterday. Paul, are you going to sign Robbie Williams up?
Well, I think we could share him with Port Vale because we've given them Alfie Devine. So that could be a straight swap, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
He'll obviously be playing some dates at the stadium next summer. That's definitely going to happen now, isn't it?
Well, I'm ashamed to admit I do have a couple of friends who are Chelsea fans, and so I shared that with them. They think it was the most cringeworthy, awful thing I've ever heard in their lives, of course, because Pochettino gets a shoe in it, and I think it's absolutely bloody brilliant.
Yeah, I'm still getting over Pochettino leaving. I haven't quite recovered from that yet. But, to me, he was everything. It was good about us because he was proud of being our manager.
Yeah.
And then he got shafted.
I think he would have come back, wouldn't he? Without a doubt.
Oh, for sure he would have come back. He was waiting by the phone, sitting there in Hadley Wood, waiting for the phone to ring, and now he has to schlap all the way to wherever it is in Surrey to go and
We've had two ex-Chelsea managers ourselves who have basically done us over like kippers. So maybe that's his job now. He can be agent Spurs at Chelsea.
Agent Pochettino, yeah.
I'd quite like him to do well there, just to, but not better than us, obviously.
Yeah, no, I hope he fails miserably. Sorry, Paul. I just hope I don't get me wrong. I can't. You can't take away what he was for us. And my wife used to say, "You love that man, don't you?" I'm like, look, yes, I do actually. He's just an incredible. He was amazing for the club, but now he's public enemy number one. That's just the game, isn't it? He's joined that lot, and we've. Anyway, let's not talk too much about him. Let's get back on to talking about Spurs. He's gone, He's gone. Actually, talking about sort of reasons to be cheerful, let's have a look at what Match of the Day tweeted. They said, are Tottenham about to enter an Arsene Wenger era? So Garth Crook said, Spurs are starting to look at that team, not a one-man show. I saw something similar at Arsenal when everything was directed towards Ian Wright, and if he didn't score, no one did. Then Arsene Wenger came along and transformed the Gunners into a title-winning team, basically saying, like, it feels like now our talisman has gone, the team is better, and the type of manager we've got is one that can build a dynasty like he did. What do you reckon to that? I'm going to start with Rich.
God, I mean, it's an hot potato of a question.
Loaded.
Isn't it, really?
Sorry, I've just thrown that hot one to you. Catch.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've said in the past, the problem with Kane, certainly for the last few years, has been that everybody has been so heavily reliant upon him that it has skewed, I think, the way that the rest of the side has played at times. That's not to say that I think it's a good thing that we don't have Harry Kane anymore. I don't want to give that impression, but I get that. I mean, the whole focus of the team is going to be on. I mean, you've seen it at clubs where they've signed players of Kane's caliber and they've come in for a big fee, and then it's all kind of media attention and crowd attention and all the circus that goes around with having a superstar in your side does sort of detract away from that whole sort of club team mentality. And although we didn't sign him, he came through. He did become that sort of that figure. And I know, people like Martin Samuel have written over the summer about how Kane actually did become bigger than Spurs, and although I don't really agree with that entirely, I think there is an element of it. And I do think certainly while our preferred centre forward is having a fail into it a barn door with a blunderbuss phase, the rest of the team's going to have to do that cohesion, aren't they? So
we'll come on to Richie a bit later on, actually, when we talk about the match, and we'll sort of have a little kind of objective look at him. But actually, Paul, if I ask you this, I'm just going to share this message with you first of all. Henry Winter tweeted, I think it was last night, that he just loves watching this Spurs side. He doesn't often say too much positive about us, but is something special happening at Spurs, do you think, Paul?
Oh, very much so, yeah. I mean, you've got to remember also last season between them, Kane and Richarlison did score 31 goals in the league. Even though 30 was scored by Harry, not scored by Richarlison. So yeah, what it is. I think, apart from all the signings who have just hit the ground running, the new signings, the fact that Sarr and Bissouma are playing like their new signings as well, and it's just gelling very well. And everyone who's been signed, Vicario, amazing, Udogie, fantastic, and then the midfield, obviously Maddison is, I think, the best player in the team now. Along with Bissouma, and it just needs Richarlison to get that goal, and then I'm sure it will be fine. It just needs to get in the right places, but we'll talk about him later, as you say. I like him, and I think we're winning. If we were losing, I could understand. All the kind of dissing he's getting right now. But
I think that's one of the things, though, Paul, is that we when I talked a little bit earlier about less pressure, is that we were told, weren't we, this is going to be a rocky start, and actually it hasn't been. It's been pleasantly the opposite to that. But equally, we've kind of girded our loins for this to happen, and with the view, I suppose, of hopefully at least we'll see some kind of identity and some kind of thing that we're aiming for, and we've had both. We've had the results and that. So I think we're all kind of ready for the ups and downs which we've been told we'll get, and I think we'll be okay with that. But we are.
It's a joy. I mean, watching the game on BT Sport or TNT or whatever they call it these days on Saturday, the fact we were going forward was just a shock in itself, really.
Yep, absolutely.
And looking for that second goal when we were 1-0 up instead of them going into a low block.
So, Rich, how much of this positivity can we just put down to simply because of Postecoglou's influence?
I think it's all of it, isn't it? I think he's driving it. I mean,
I say that because Paratici has bought some really good players. Actually, it turns out. But
the previous guy didn't fucking use them.
Yeah. No, this is yeah. So I mean, we kind of have touched about it in previous pods, I suppose. Just that he's man management. But do you put most of this now, this kind of change in dynamic, down to Pochettino? Oops, nearly said the put a pound in the jar there. Down to Postecoglou.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously. I was thinking about this the other day after the game, actually. About how often we heard from Conte about, he had that lovely little turn of insult, a club signing. That player is a club signing, um, and why wasn't he using this player, and why wasn't that player getting game time and so on? And he would, oh well, these players are club signings, and yet Postecoglou said, I think it was in the pre-match press conference about looking in unlikely places for talent, and about being open-minded to using what you've already got, and about approaching everything with a clean slate and just taking things at face value. And I think can you imagine, right? Let's just sort of shift over into a slightly parallel universe where we scraped through into Europe last year and fucking Conte stayed at the club, right? Let's just go into the misery vaults for a minute. Do you think, like he would have already, like Sarr, I think, played in the Champions League and then was dropped immediately afterwards, wasn't he? He played in Milan and then we didn't see him again, did we?
And he was excellent. He made a mistake in the game at Bournemouth, was it?
Yeah,
he gave away that penalty.
Yeah. But I mean, apart from that, he's been, incredible. I mean, Destiny Udogie was out on loan, so he obviously didn't get the chance to play him, but you've got to wonder whether or not he would have been played. Jed Spence obviously was a man missing from the get-go, and so you got players like all the way like this that if had that guy stayed, they probably wouldn't be in that side. Although we saw Højbjerg on Saturday, we didn't see him until later. You can imagine that he would still be the anchor point in that midfield and teams would still be walking through us like they were last year. So I think you've got to say, going back to your question, he's come in and he's gone, yeah, God, these guys can really play. And look what Sarr is doing already. I mean, what a player that guy is.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you, Rich. And I'd argue it goes, his influence goes beyond that. What I really like to see is the way that he also is having fun with the media, his confidence with the media, the way that he sort of pulled Gary Neville down a peg, just basically say the other day saying, I just copy Pep, mate, And then other stuff like they were trying to put the mic on him and all this kind of stuff, and he was joking about at least just get to know you first and that kind of stuff. But he just seems to have this rapport, I should say, with the media very quickly. Also saying the right things to fans. So even just beyond the way that we're playing, the man seems to really have worked out what this club needs and how he can communicate that, and how important it is to communicate that to everyone, like within the club, without the club. So and just actually before we get on to the match, then do you want to chip in with anything there, Paul?
No, I just think that he's also obviously on a charm offensive and has won everyone over, but most importantly, he's won over the players. Because they could have been quite skeptical. And obviously Harry Kane was a little bit skeptical about the whole thing. Otherwise he would have stayed, you'd hope. But, I think this guy is the guy to take us forward. And the squad are united. There's no cliques. It seems they're all together on the same page now. And it's just lovely to see. So I think he's just an incredible manager. And for speaking to fans of Celtic, they say you haven't seen anything yet. It's going to get even better. So it's like, okay.
Well, it seems to have united so many of us, including generally the fan base. Maybe you could argue the anti-Enoch ones are just that they're not against him, but they're still trying to find ways of of making it miserable if they can.
Don't get started on that.
Yeah. Anyway, let's jump ahead to the match. So we played Bournemouth away. We won 2-0 with goals from Maddison and Kulusevski. We had the lion's share of the possession again away from home, which is fantastic. Bournemouth are no mugs, are they? They're actually a really good team. So just give us your general thoughts, Paul, on the first half.
The first half was just we hit the ground running, didn't we? And they weren't in the game at all, Bournemouth, although they we had chances to make it 2-0 in the first half, and we didn't take them. And then they had that one shot that brought out a good save from Vicario. I thought we should have gone in at halftime at least 2 or 3-0 up. So that was my only worry going into the second half, was that we hadn't finished it off.
Yeah,
but I could see that we would still win, because it was like men against boys. We were streets ahead of them in possession and every department. We were the first to the ball.
I mean, I say that you say about men against boys. I agree to the sense of that our quality, but I actually thought their Bournemouth put up a good fight, and I thought they played pretty well. I mean, they in the first half there was a shot. I can't remember which player it was now. I don't really know too many of their players, but
Billings, I think it might have been.
Was it hit the side netting? Didn't it? It looked like it had gone in. He was quite lively. And they seem to be pretty organized. I remember saying in the last pod to Tom that I thought, this might be 2-1, because I got the sense that they're pretty well organized now. They've bought pretty well. And so, I agree. I felt we had the opportunities to score more, but we always did feel like we were in control. And when Sarr knocked that beautiful ball through to Maddison to score, I mean, that was just top draw. That was
both. Yeah, that was a classy move, and as was the second goal, the lead up to the second goal. But I think that there was only one spell in the second half where Bournemouth looked like they might get back into it. First 15 minutes, but then it was all over really. Once we went 2-0 up, that was it. Game over.
Talking about togetherness, I love that celebration. The darts one from Maddison, that was good. And then a lot of them are joining in on that. Rich, what were your sort of general impressions of the first half?
Well, I thought they came out with an intention to press and try and see if they could find a weakness. And what it was lovely to see that we appeared to break their press from the first minute, and they just lost heart, didn't they? After 10, I can't remember how long it was when was it 17 minutes or something we scored. It was reasonably early in the first half, I think. By the time that goal had gone in, all of the belief that they had in their pressing organisation appeared to have gone. And even before that goal went in, we'd beaten them. We'd beaten them at that point. There was, like Paul said, sort of man against boys. We'd sort of broken their plan immediately, and there was a bit of me that was sat watching it thinking, I wonder if their guys have watched the end of last season and gone, this is how you beat Spurs, right? You just put a bit of pressure on them and they'll roll over. And they've come out and gone, yeah, we're going to fucking do this to Tottenham. And 5 minutes later, they're all stood there going, fucking hell, we don't know what to do about this. We can't get any time on the ball. They're everywhere. Every time we lose the ball in turnover, they're in our 18-yard box 15 seconds later, I thought it was marvellous. I'm really impressed with the new centre-half partnership. Van der Ven, a lot was made of his speed.
He's a giant, by the way.
Yeah. But his whether he's quick or not doesn't appear to be. Granted, it wasn't the greatest test at the weekend, but he appears to be in the right place, and that I think is far more important. He seems to have a great head on him. And so even when they sort of stole possession when we were pressing up high up in the pitch and turned us round, I didn't really have any. I don't ever remember once thinking, shit, we've had it now.
No, I absolutely agree. But actually, we'll jump ahead to the second half then, and we'll get your sort of general thoughts on that. The goal came in the second half, the second one, which basically killed the whole game off. Sonny, lovely little touch to a doggy, and doggy went to the sort of byline, just kept it in, didn't he, and passed it back to Kula, which was, again, that wasn't an easy finish. The way he sort of knocked that in was superb, and really that was game over. Do you see the fist pump by the ball boy from the Bournemouth ball boy as well? I think he was secretly coys, wasn't he?
That'll be his last game then.
Yeah, check it out. Have a look on Twitter. There's this their ball boy sitting there. Kulusevski scores, and he does this little discreet little fist pump kind of thing, like, yes, get in. Brilliant. So just general, Paul, your thoughts on the second half?
Yeah, it was just the same, apart from the 15 minutes when they were under the cosh slightly because Bournemouth were coming out looking for that equaliser. But as soon as it went in to 2-0, and I think once, because Richarlison missed that easy chance, slightly easy chance maybe in the first half, and then he stumbled on the ball in the second half, and then they made the substitutions. We scored after that, didn't we? The second goal after he'd gone off. But yeah, I just didn't feel at any stage we were in trouble or we would go 1-0 or anything like that. I just thought this is either going to be 2-0 or 3-0, depending on if we take our chances or not.
Absolutely, yeah.
The back four look great, and Porro's come in and done a great job as well. So it's just lovely to watch right now.
Yeah, it is. It's a joy to behold, isn't it? Rich, I'm going to ask you, managing the game. We, for a first time, not only we got 2 clean sheets on the bounce, but this wasn't supposed to be the case, was it? We were told that we were going to be shipping a ton of goals. And yet, why is this happening? We seem to be managing the game really well as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's very proactive with his substitutions, isn't he? You know, and they're a bit earlier as well. We were used to Conte changing between 75 minutes. He would start changing if things were going well, and then if things were going badly, I don't know, he'd normally have fucking vanished or whatever he did. You know, but he's changing them. He's changing them sooner. He's being more proactive. We saw it at Brentford with the head injury, the possible concussion with Romero, that he doesn't fuck about. He just makes a decision and goes, no, this is what we're going to do. I mean, that's really refreshing. I mean, you know, Lee, you will know this, you know, because we were sort of communicating through the game. When Højbjerg came on, I just sort of went, oh, fuck it, you know, here we go again. But
Skip and Højbjerg, the reunion.
Yeah. I thought we'd sold him, you know. But actually, even he seems to be a bit of a man transformed, don't he? And actually, that seems to have been that was a really effective substitution in order to sort of shore up that centre. I mean, we've alluded to them having that sort of 15, 20 minutes where they were a little bit more in the ascension. I've had this very long-held theory about games of football that are open games of football where both teams are trying to win the game tend to go in 20-minute cycles, I see, you know, and teams that win trophies and teams that do really well are the teams that capitalise in each 20-minute chunk. Yeah. And our failure over years have always been, we'll play really well for 20 minutes, but not score the goal, but we will concede in their 20 minutes. And what I noticed on Saturday was when it came to their time to really sort of throw everything at it, and for them to have in that second half, that 15, 20-minute cycle, apart from one or two hairy moments where there was a lot of bodies in the box or what have you, I don't actually think we were even under any pressure, were we?
No.
And I think the game management's got a lot to do with that bringing those fresh legs in at the right time, rather than waiting for players to pick up tiresome injuries, you know, where they're stretching for things or they're they're slow to react or what have you. So
that's excellent analysis, mate. That's I'm really glad you mentioned that about the subs, actually, and I'll ask Paul in a second. But they really did impress me. And in the past, we kind of looked at the manager and thought, why isn't he bringing someone on? Why is he waiting another 5-10 minutes to see if it's going to turn out all right? You know, the fact that he's this proactive and bringing on these changes and using the subs in a really, pragmatic way and thoughtful way, and not just shutting the game down. It's, you know, there's real thought of, like, thinking a step ahead, it feels like to me.
Do you remember last season against Milan when Conte took off forward and brought on Sanchez? You know, and what are you doing? We're chasing the game.
Yeah, and that was the most bizarre thing I'd ever seen in my life.
For a 0-0, we're 1-0 down in the first leg, and I think that's when you realised, you know, and the performance against Sheffield United away in the cup.
Yeah.
To me, when he did that in the Champions League, that was his bringing Lucas Moura off against Man United moment.
You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we basically all agree, I suppose, then that the substitutions were excellent. So Sarr and Ritchie went off, and Perisic and Højbjerg came on. Perisic has been doing really well recently, and I think it will probably be that he'll stay at the club. Højbjerg is one of those. I think it looks like he might well be on his way out of the club, but like you say, Rich, I think when he came on, he really did a solid job, a different job to that he normally does. That was proactive, and then we had Madison and Basuma come off, and the Celso and Skip came on, and it was strange actually watching the game. Whoever came on picked up the same tempo, picked up the same the patterns of play. It didn't look like we were weakened in any kind of way at all. The only one worry I had was when Doggy went off, and it looked like he was quite badly injured. And Davies came on, did a solid job. But does anyone know anything about Doggy, whether he's okay or not?
Yeah, well, I heard that he was fine,
Oh,
and
okay.
it was just a precaution to take him off. So very similar to. I don't think he left the ground on crutches like Madison did the week before. So I'm sure he will be fine for Saturday, if not tomorrow.
He's been exceptional. From the off, I think everyone sort of thought this lad is something really special about him, and he seems to be setting up a lot of the goals and being really one of the sort of catalysts for our attacking play. So I think it would be a major loss if we lost him.
Well, we're going to lose him, and I know who are we going to lose to the African nations? We're going to
Basuma
and Sarr, is it?
Yeah, Basuma and Sarr probably.
Not your doggy.
I'm not sure because Udogie, I think, is the under 21 for Italy, I believe, isn't he? Is that right? Do you know Rich at all?
You have to Google.
No, I'm pretty sure he plays for the under 21s for Italy.
I'm only on a fucking Spurs podcast. I don't know anything about our players, mate. Good Lord.
Well, you reckon we know anything about it? We're just blagging it as well, mate. So should we trot through, if we can quickly, then some of the teams? So Vicario, like I said last pod, I hold my hands up. I think I'm wrong about him, although he's still, got a way to go yet before we can, consider him, a brilliant acquisition. He seems to be settling into it. I saw a stat saying he's saved 93.3% of all shots and only one from open play, which is the best in the Premier League. So, he seems to be doing particularly well. Porro, I'm going to sort of eat my metaphorical hat on that one as well, because in the last pod, I said I think he might be the flop of the season. I mean, I know it's only a couple of games, but already, do you know what? I mean, maybe he's the one instead of Emerson. What do you think about that, Rich?
Well, I noticed I was going to mention this actually because a lot's been made of how Emerson Royale's been coming inside and playing more of a midfield. And I noticed that Porro was doing a similar thing as well. They're obviously leaving space out on that right-hand side for Kulusevski to have as much room as possible. Or I say obviously, I'm guessing. I'm not a coach, but it looks like they're sort of inverting that role a little bit more. So maybe he's having to adapt a little bit, and so that's why it's perhaps taking a bit of time. I mean, I'm encouraged by him. I've seen far worse players in recent years in that position.
Well, I mean, one of the things I really liked, I don't know if you clocked this. Did you watch the whole game actually? Yeah. I mean, when this was just something I particularly liked, but whenever Porro and Romero made a challenge or a tackle, they were shoulder charging each other and really, I mean, there's high fives, this real aggression between them, and talking about Romero, I don't know whether it's because the vice captaincy has been given to him, but there's more of a controlled aggression about him now. He really looks the player that we really hope we'd get, and he really impressed me. Any thoughts on him, Paul?
Romero, we're 4 out now, and now he's got the number that he wanted. He's a World Cup winner. What more do you need?
Yeah.
He's going to be there. Hopefully, he'll stay for 5-6 years, along with all the others that have come in who are only in their early 20s. He's incredible, and he's a real leader. It seems to me that everyone respects him, and he's a great guy to have in the team. You'd rather have him on your team than playing against you, especially with the dark arts that he,
absolutely.
Because the hair pulling has come back into the public domain because of the referee, that's John Moss or whoever it was, decided to talk about it.
Personally, I thought he should have got a certificate for that myself. I was well happy with it.
Mm.
But then actually Van der Ven, I was told by Twitter that he was the lesser of the two out of Tapsoba and was basically not very good in the air. He was just a pace merchant. This guy looks like he is. I mean, he's just 22, is he? Something like that. His best years are ahead of him, but he reads the game so well.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that one, Paul?
Yeah. The funniest thing I'll tell you about him is that today I was in the Spurs store and they printed off a shirt, and the guy who did it put Van der Van. He couldn't
That's
even
what my wife said yesterday. She went, "That Van der Van was very good."
He couldn't even spell.
Yeah, it's nearly as good as Van Morrison.
Oh, no one's as good as Van Morrison.
That's true.
Hero. Yeah, he looks great.
Mm.
I know he had a bit of a dodgy pre-season, possibly. I think people weren't sure, but he's settling in really nicely.
Mm.
You've got to remember, it's a big upheaval for these guys. They've come from different country, different league, different everything.
I mean, of the new acquisitions, we had quite pretty much a spine of the team, really, and they've settled so well so far. I mean, like we said before, okay, let's not get carried away. It's early days, but so far they've settled very, very quickly. That's that's possibly because we bought the right people, and and obviously a lot of credit that goes to Ange as well. But
we're playing to their strengths, not their weaknesses. It makes a change to be playing to the team's strengths and not their weaknesses.
Who would have thought, eh?
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously we've done all the eulogies for Doggy. I think he's just incredible. Sarr really looks a fantastic player. He's still very, very young, but he's got an eye for a pass, Rich.
Yeah, I've been a massive, massive fan of this guy ever since I first saw him. I was really, really apprehensive that the club were going to let him go. Was that he would be one of those young players they bought in just to turn a few quid on, and I'm so happy that he's in the side because he is a serious fucking footballer.
Oh yeah, yeah. And talking about serious footballers, Basuma, have we found our Dembele replacement, do we think?
A lot of people are saying, aren't they? Yeah.
We've got the Basuma that we wanted.
Yeah.
Not the Basuma that Conte ruined.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've also got a Maddison that's even better than the one that was at Leicester, I think. He just really seems to fit this team like hand in glove.
And he looks like a Spurs player. Like he's been...
Yeah, he does.
He's just got it, hasn't he? He's got that midfield genius that we have lacked.
The thing about James Maddison, and I know I've said this before, I hated him before we bought him. I thought he was a right little prick, and I think that's probably
But he's our prick now.
Yeah, well, that's good to say, that's kind of a compliment, isn't it? When if you hate them when they play against you, that must be a bit of a compliment, yeah. And so, but actually, you're right. Like you just said there, he looks like a Spurs player, and I think in the side, especially in the absence of the huge shadow that is Harry Kane, like he has got the platform to grow into the international star that he's got the talent to be. He won't be constantly playing in Kane's shadow. He won't be linking up for Kane. He won't be supplying Kane. He won't be yada yada. He can come to Spurs and be Billy Big Bollocks, and I reckon he's relishing it.
Oh, he's up for that. He's stroking them right now as we speak, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Paul, you want to say something?
I think he might play in the England squad. I'm sure he'll get a call up.
Yeah.
He's in such good form. And then he can link up with Harry Kane there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Show Harry Kane what is missing. And then say with Harry Kane that if he wants to win trophies, he's going to have to come back to Spurs.
Absolutely. And then Kulusevski, I thought, looked like much more close to the player that we remember in his pomp. He's getting there. I mean, we talked about his goal, which was nicely taken, but overall, his play, I thought, it just seems to be getting better and better.
Yeah.
And what do we feel? Any of you agree? I should say, really.
Go, Paul. Yeah.
He hasn't quite regained the form that he had, but when he was playing with Bentancur in the team as well. I think he's missing him, but that injury obviously was worse than we thought it was because he's taken his time to get back up to full speed. But he took his goal really nicely. There was the time in the first half, I think it was, when Maddison put a ball through to him, but it was on his right foot. And so someone needs to tell Maddison that Kulusevski's only got one foot. So, and it's not the right.
And it's the other one, yeah.
Well, do you know what? You mentioned Bentancur, and he might be back in about 2.5 weeks' time.
Can you imagine?
Wow. Yeah.
What with that and Ivan Toney coming in January, it's all great.
It's all coming together. I love it when a plan comes together. Son as well. I thought he looked much more like his old self as well. Didn't score, but he's playing better. He's not quite there yet, but it's starting, because you got to remember, right, that would you take the one of the biggest figureheads out of the club. That's a wrench. There's got to change a whole dynamic there. You've got to change a partnership, which is, like I said, Tom, in the last pod, which has basically been the most prolific partnership in Premier League history. And now you remake that. And I think he's starting to take shape in that position and figure it out.
And we're recording this on the 8th anniversary of his signing.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
God, I can remember then 8 years ago when we just signed him, all the hoo-ha on Twitter, because everybody on Twitter seemed to think we should have bought Saido fucking Berahino instead. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
I've got the shirt to prove it.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I quite fancied Saido Berahino. I thought he was a decent bloody player. But do you remember when, and it was one of those conspiracy things that came up, like, oh, the club are having us over because they've listed Son as a forward in the squad when he's actually a winger and all this, they're trying to get out of buying a striker. Do you remember it?
Berahino, where are they now? One of those sort of things.
I heard. He was in Turkey, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah, he'll probably end up in
Turkey.
Arabia somewhere.
Yeah.
So then I think we need to touch upon this hot topic, which everyone seems to have written him off already, is our boy Richie. Let's just go through this. I'll ask you, Rich, first, then I come to you, Paul. Let's just get your hot takes.
He's gonna be fine, He's gonna be fine. He's a fucking international, Brazilian international goal scoring striker, right? He's going to be absolutely fine. If we cast our minds back to the August and September of every Premier League year for the last decade, our centre forward didn't normally score any goals. And my birthday's in early October, right? And Harry Kane's only normally just started scoring before my birthday. So like he's all right. It's early, and it's and this is a big role for him to step into. The team's been completely transformed. I mean, I said after the Brentford game, my only problem with him in the Brentford game was that he plays off the shoulder of the centre halves, and he likes to run in, whereas Kane used to move the centre halves about and create space for people. And I think this touches a little bit on what you were saying about Son beginning to change and to adapt and to fit into this new side, is that Son now needs to create his own space instead of running into space that's being created for him. And so them two guys up front are having to work out how to play together in a new world. And it's only been 3 games and it will be all right.
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
Bravo.
He's going to be fucking fine. And I'll tell you what, I'll give him a season because I think he's a bloody wonderful bloke and he's a hell of an athlete and he clearly wants to be at the club and he clearly wants to get it right. You can see how much it's getting to him. He's frustrated. Yeah. He's not there counting his money. He's going to be fine.
It's just in his head at the moment, isn't it? That's all.
He's done it for Watford. He's done it for Everton. He's done it for Brazil. He just needs to do it for Spurs. And I'm sure he will, given a run of games. He will come good. I mean, he scored 2 great goals in the World Cup, which was only last summer or whenever. No, last winter. And then before that, he scored 2 great goals in the Champions League for us. Those 2 headers when he came on and scored. Against.
I mean, he's Brazil number 9. He's not there because
he's fine
because he owes money to someone or someone owes money to him in Brazil or something. He's a top player.
He's trying too hard. It seems
he
to
is
me.
trying too hard. Like I said, it's in his head at the moment.
He needs to
That's
chill.
all. Yeah, and it will come to him. He just needs probably one going off his ass, and something like that
It's a
will
big
just trigger
arse.
him. Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I mean, well, I'll take your word for that. But
it's a big Brazilian arse.
big Brazilian arse, yeah, and it's and it's been fully waxed, so it'll slip off that nice and easy. So anyway,
hopefully
so
he'll play tomorrow night, and I reckon if he does play tomorrow night, he will score. So
he will. I mean, he got a hat trick. Don't forget in the preseason. He's not a bloody donkey. You've got to give him chance. You can't write him off after 3 games. Yes, he should have done much better, and everybody, even if you're rational and objective, will have been screaming and almost putting their foot in the TV when he didn't score that one that he should have made more of. But there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders replacing Harry Kane, and also he knows he needs to succeed. He's one of our record buys, but it will happen. He just needs to feel the love, and I like one thing that Postecoglou said, done again. Yeah, it's a Freudian slip, I'm sure. But the fact that he said to him, look, I won't play him if I don't think he's doing well. And if I think he can help the team, he plays. In other words, I'm going to keep playing him because the guy is really good for the team. And so he's basically, I know some people try to interpret that as like, he needs to drop him. That's not what I think he means here. He says, I'm not just playing him out of sympathy. He's good. He's
not
overall
the kind of manager
play.
would do that. He doesn't.
Exactly. He wants to win. His overall play is very good.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? He's also sort of saying he is more than his goals, far more than his goals, And I think we will have a bit of a season of this. We're going to get goals from all over the team.
That's great.
And that's no bad thing because we're going to have a fucking Harry Kane swear jar as well, aren't we?
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna have a right old piss up at the end of the season, mate.
Oh, we're not giving it to charity.
Sorry, they're gonna have a right old piss up.
Yeah. Well, I've lost my train of thought now. The last few years, like we've been so reliant on Kane's goals and Son's goals, and great, they've been there and he's done it routinely and all of that stuff. But when he was injured, it fucking terrified us all because didn't we? We'd go,
we're done, weren't we?
Season's over, right? So if we're now building a team where the goals are going to come from, we've had Romero score already, Maddison's already scored, they're coming from Kulusevski, they're coming from, we've had Sarr scored against United, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Royal scored. We've had 5 different scorers, including one goal.
It can only be good for us to take the pressure off Richarlison,
And finally, talking about things to round this game up that were good for us. The Goons drew to Fulham. And Fulham were down to 10 men.
I know,
and they still drew. Am I getting carried away here? But I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last season.
No, they've shot their bolt that lot.
Yeah,
If they won it last year, they'd have gone in. I think they would have gone on to be intolerable.
Yeah,
but seeing as they shot their bolt too early last year, I think they fucked it.
Yeah, I think they shut their nappies. I think they're gonna, they're not gonna basically. I think this season they'll have an okay season, but I don't think it'll be anything like last season.
No, while we're beating Burnley this weekend, they'll be at home to Man United, struggling. So it'll be great.
Yes, Paul. Yes,
double whammy.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about the final week of the window because it shuts on Friday, or as they say, it slams shut on Friday. So, who do we think will be culled this week? And any surprises, even? Paul?
No, I reckon we've got about 37 players, and I think the ones that will go will be Reggie and Tanganga and Ndombele, hopefully, Dyer, Lloris, and Rodon and Devine have already gone. So that's
a lot to shift this week. Yeah. Do you think we can manage it this week, though? I mean, that's a lot to get out the door.
Well, you've got 5 players there who are so comfortable being at Spurs and don't want to take a drop down to go anywhere else because they've they've got the life of luxury, haven't they?
Mm.
Would you want to go if
No.
you were a Spurs player?
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to get these players out. They're under contract. Unless their contracts run out, you're stuck with them, aren't you? And no one's going to pay Ndombele 300 grand a week or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So we are, all we can do is cancel their contracts and buy them out and write them off. And,
Can you see any surprises, Rich, on outgoings or not?
No, I think Paul's hit the nail on the head there. I mean, I would personally have liked to have seen Gio Lo Celso go out of the club as well. But, he seems to be getting a chance as a sub. I don't know. Maybe he will get an opportunity to be the player that we all thought we were buying when we got in, because there is a player in there.
Mm-hmm.
He's just never done it for Spurs. I can't see any other huge surprises. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they did just end up cancelling the contracts. We know they've done it before. They did it with Serge Aurier. They did it with Matt Doherty. Although they weren't such big contracts. So, but
I think that could happen for Dyer. I think that might happen for him.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think, to be fair to Eric Dyer, it wouldn't be such a bad thing, if they just said, look, thanks for the memories, mate. We've gone over Eric Dyer before. I don't think we need to do it again.
No.
He's a player that's blown hot and cold, but I think as a player that formed an identity of that Pochettino side, then I've got fond memories of him. But I do think it's time that he was off. So maybe they just go, look, thanks for the memories. You've done your bit. You're a free agent. There's your bonus.
Yeah, Paul, do we lack?
I was surprised with Lloris because he's been there 10 years. The least he deserved was a testimonial. Or something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's been amazing in that 10 years. He fell away a bit at the end, but
Do we think something went on in that? That sort of game against Newcastle where it all sort of imploded, and then he was taken off at half time. I wonder if something more.
Yeah, there was a fight in the
on.
dressing room for sure. I mean,
who
knows who hit who? We'll never know, will we? So until the books start coming out. The kiss and tells.
So Rich, do you think we lack depth at all?
I'd like to see another striker on the bench, just because Son and Richarlison are both prone to picking up knocks. I mean, as we know, Richarlison spent a huge part of last season injured, didn't he? So even if it's a young player, I would like to see somebody else coming up front.
Well, the Twitter mafia think it has to be Gift Orban. None of us have heard of him about a month ago, or so. But he is pulling up trees in the Belgian league. But let's not forget Vincent Janssen is pulling up trees in the Belgian league. So he does still feel like somewhat of a punt if we went for him. And so I don't know. I mean, I think we'll probably stick with Richarlison. We don't really have any natural backup for him. Maybe Son could do that job. We've got Veliz. I think it's going to take a little bit of time before he's ready. So I wouldn't be surprised if something happened around that area.
Brandon Johnson is the one they're talking about now, isn't it?
Yeah, he doesn't play that role though, does he? He plays sort of more sort of Son position, is it?
But I can see a swap happening there with one or two of them.
With Sanchez, maybe.
Way.
Yeah. So Brennan Johnson's apparently, Ange said get him at all costs. We'll see. We'll see what happens before the end of the window.
In Ange we trust.
Absolutely.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll round up with the preview then of the Fulham game. Do we think we're going to field a full strength side, or are we going to sort of make a number of changes? Paul, you're not shaking your head there. What do you feel?
I think we're going to see our B team versus their B team. Actually,
really.
I mean, I can see Forster being in goal, and then I can see Holbier, Davies, Royale, Skip, Perisic, Lo Celso, Solomon against his old team, all playing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Maddison and the others will get a rest.
I think we'll see some changes. I mean, Postecoglou was saying today, I love winning. I don't care what it is. I love winning, and the players know that. We've got a game on Tuesday and I want to win it. That's all I'm thinking about. I don't care if it's a cup competition or whatever it is, playing in the car park or on the roof. We just need to go out there and try to win because I love winning. And that will be the message, which is great to hear, right? I mean, no manager's ever going to say, I want to lose. I get that. But the fact is that given that message that he said so strongly, I suspect that he's going to go with a fairly strong side, but make a few key changes, like maybe Lo Celso for Maddison, not take any chances on him. Maybe I think he'll probably keep Ritchie in there. Possibly Vicario, but because it's been quite a tight turnaround, isn't it, from Saturday to? But I don't think it'll be like complete wholesale changes. I wouldn't, because if we do go out on that one, I think it'll. I don't think that will be a good look.
We need to keep the momentum, don't we?
Yeah.
What we've built so far.
What about you, Rich? Would you feel?
Well, we need to win both domestic cups this year, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
They need to fucking
and the league, Rich.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, I think honestly, I think that's what he'll be thinking. I think he's going to take it seriously enough. They are Premier League opposition, and yeah, I think Paul's right. I think I reckon they might be more inclined to field a more defined B team than us, because they've got bigger priorities this year, haven't they?
Yeah. I think they did likewise last year, didn't they? And I think their priorities, like you say, are really going to be staying in the league. I can see them doing a number of changes and us doing some changes.
Yeah, and don't forget that he's still, he's because he is changing, and I mean, whether it's with his substitutions in game or with his starting lineup, he is still trying things out. He's getting the feel of his side, so we're not going to see an unchanged or a nearly unchanged 11. I would like to see Fraser Forster getting reasonable amount of game time, because if Vicario has a bit of a wobble or picks up a bit of an injury, he needs to be ready to go. And I'm a massive fan of Fraser Forster. I think he should be playing if he's still at the club. I mean, I know he's nearly as old as me, which is fucking old. But like, I think what I know is if I have too many days off work, I get really creaky if I have to go back, the next day. So they got to keep him going.
He's a safe pair of hands as well, isn't he?
I like to see him on the field,
Yeah.
Because I think he'd be a hell of a player to keep at the club in retirement.
Oh, absolutely. He could join the coaching team as well, couldn't he? So yeah. So we'll start with the man that's actually going. What would you say, Paul, in terms of match prediction? Give us your prediction.
I think we're going to win 2-1.
Okay. And Richie boy?
Yeah, I was going to say 2-1 as well. Yeah. I think they're going to have a bit of a go at us early on, and they might nick a goal, but I fancy us to grind them down and then smash them to. That scene in Game of Thrones where he punches his teeth out and then squashes his head? That's what the second half's going to look like.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, actually, I'm gonna put my nuts on the line here and say 4-1. And I think Richie is gonna get a brace.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that, we'll round up. I'll do my usual plug for Redemption. If you haven't been, get along with the next home game, which I think is in about 3.5 years' time. The next home game. It seems to be a long way off at the moment, doesn't it? It's just, I don't know how they've fallen. But anyway, so thank you very much for joining us, boys and Coys.
Come on, you Spurs.
Thanks for inviting me on.
There's no place on earth I wouldn't want to be than right here, in this minute of trying to bring success to one of the biggest football clubs in the world. The basic underlying principles that I want my team to play football that scares the life out of every opposition, mate. That's kind of the end game.